Welcome to My Irish Radio Music and Culture News, your connection to everything happening in the world of Irish music and culture. I'm Jamie Flanagan. Each episode will share the latest news from Ireland's vibrant music scene, from traditional and folk to rebel ballads, pub tunes, Celtic rock, and today's top Irish pop. We'll also bring you updates on festivals, cultural events, and people keeping Irish heritage alive around the world. And remember, My Irish Radio is more than just a station. It's your community, your soundtrack, your voice. You can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com and through the links in the podcast description below. Here's the best part. You can be part of it. Host your very own show on My Irish Radio. Choose your playlist, share your stories, make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio. Let's get into what's happening this week in Irish music and culture.
Today, we're taking a single dynamic snapshot of, the pulse of Ireland in early 2026. We've got a whole stack of sources, articles, cultural reviews, demographic data to really give you the shortcut to understanding what the country feels like right now.
And we're not just, listing headlines here. What we're trying to do is identify the tension points. The sources really show a country at this high-velocity intersection.
Okay.
Where this profound, deep tradition is meeting very modern, globalized success. And it's forcing this rapid internal redefinition.
So our mission for this deep dive is to guide you through two major forces shaping this moment. First, we have to talk about the explosive rise of authentic voices in music and the kind of global reach they're getting. And second, we've got to look at these subtle but really powerful shifts in social traditions and identity, the quiet revolutions happening at home. This is, I think, the synthesis of Ireland in transition.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this with music first, because that's where the energy is just so evident. The start of 2026 for Irish music, it's not just good, it's explosive. But the real story here isn't just the success.
No.
It's why they're succeeding. And the sources are, they're unanimous. Authenticity is everything right now.
It's such a fascinating pivot, and the why really matters here. Historically, you had Irish artists who, they sometimes felt they had to smooth out their accent.
Right, neutralize their sound to get on the radio internationally.
Exactly. That traditional gatekeeping has been basically decimated by global streaming and social media. Now, that niche sound, the specific accent, the super local context, that's the commodity.
And we're seeing that pay off, dramatically. Yep. Fontaines D.C., they just embody that gritty, honest Dublin voice, and they're right in the thick of it. They've earned these huge Grammy nominations for their album Romance.
And that success is mirrored by CMAT, who is, you could argue, the poster child for this whole movement.
Oh, completely.
She is just so unapologetically herself, witty, a little bit country, highly theatrical. The key takeaway for you is that these artists are finding massive global fame because they didn't try to sound like anyone else.
They leaned into it.
They leaned right into their distinct Irish voices.
That raw energy, it translates directly into the buzz for live shows. When you look at the festival circuit, the demand is so clearly for stuff that's provocative and, locally rooted.
Exactly. Take Kneecap. For listeners who might not know them, they're an Irish language hip-hop group. And they are known for being fiercely political, often controversial. The fact that their buzz is still dominating these conversations, it just shows that the audience is hungry for cultural commentary that, challenges things.
And delivered in a local, even a minority language.
Right. And this demand for genuine roots isn't just for rock or hip hop. The Irish News is predicting a huge year for traditional Irish music as well. Yeah. They cited Julia Spana from the group Moxie as an artist to watch in that space.
So if you connect those dots, you see this sort of national embrace of what's genuine.
It's a unified cultural moment. A post-punk band and a traditional musician are being celebrated for the exact same reason. They are speaking their truth, completely unvarnished.
And the sheer diversity of new releases shows that openness. Hot Press was tracking emerging pop acts like E. Florence Road, Sohadius, and Eddie Winston.
And what's interesting about them is they show this blend of traditional melody with modern production. It proves that folk heritage runs deep, even in pop.
You can't overlook the experimental stuff either. The Journal of Music pointed to jazz and experimental artists like Wyatt Divide, and this was surprising, the National Concert Hall Gamelan Orchestra.
It just suggests an artistic environment that's confident enough in its own identity to absorb these global sounds and then filter them through a uniquely Irish sensibility.
So to tie this all up, we have Joshua Burnside's album Teeth of Time, which is already showing up on all the year-end lists. The quality is just incredibly high, the diversity is wide, and the common thread is that deep, celebrated connection to place.
So if that first section was about the new wave, this next part is really about legacy and adaptation. We need to talk about the challenging, difficult, but often necessary changes that iconic Irish bands have to go through to continue their journey.
And this is where we get into the real emotional core of Irish music history. After the tragic passing of the legend Christy Dignam, Aslan had a monumentally tough decision to make. And the sources have confirmed they've welcomed Lee Tompkins as their new singer for the upcoming tour.
And that decision, it reflects the need to preserve the work itself. In a similar way, you have the script, who had to evolve after losing their guitarist Mark Sheehan in 2023. They chose to continue by adding 2 new members.
Right.
And that process is just so full of risk because it asks the audience to completely redefine their whole understanding of the band itself.
Okay, but hang on. If we just establish that authenticity is the key to global success right now, doesn't replacing a beloved founding member undermine the genuine nature of that band's sound?
Yeah.
How do these legacy acts justify that to the purists, to the longtime fans?
That is the friction point. It forces us to define what authenticity even means. For the new acts, it means original local voice. For these legacy acts, it transforms into the authenticity of purpose.
The purpose. Okay.
They're basically saying the music itself, the message, the emotional connection built over decades, that is what must be preserved. Even if the person performing it has to change, it becomes an act of, cultural guardianship.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about honoring the music's lifespan, not just the original members.
Yeah.
And then you get the complete curveball, which reinforces this whole idea of redefining presence. The wolf tones.
A big surprise.
The sources confirm they are coming out of retirement to play shows in Dublin this summer.
An unexpected unretirement from a band with that kind of historical weight, it signals that the current cultural environment is so vibrant, so receptive, that even the established giants feel like they have to re-engage.
You're listening to My Irish Music and Culture News, brought to you by My Irish Radio, streaming the best in Irish and Celtic music all day, every day. From classic jigs and reels to the latest Irish rock and pub favorites, we celebrate the sound of Ireland worldwide. Want to be more than a listener? Be a host. Share your love for the Irish music by hosting your own show on My Irish Radio. It's easy to get started. Just send us an email, myirishradio@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com. Make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio.
So the story of Irish music in 2026 is complex.
It is. It's about discovery, sure, but it's also about legacy acts, finding new relevance, and, continuing to define the country's soundtrack.
Okay, let's use that idea of honoring and adapting the past as our bridge here, because this pulse of change isn't just on the music stage. We're seeing the exact same dynamic in how younger generations are engaging with Irish cultural heritage.
Yes. The sources really show this national movement of adapting to new times.
And the best case study for this has to be the reclamation of Nollaig na Bán, or Women's Christmas, on January 6th. This is where we shift from music history to some pretty deep sociological changes.
It really is.
So explain that reclamation for us, because traditionally it was, a day where women were relieved of all the domestic work and the men took over for 24 hours.
Precisely. The tradition was rooted in the idea of domestic relief. But this new movement is shifting beyond passive relief to active assertion.
How so?
Younger generations are using that date to celebrate women's creative, professional, and cultural contributions in a much bigger, more active way. It's about visibility and collective identity, not just a day off from the kitchen sink.
And the sources had some really great specific examples of this grassroots energy. People organizing these communal sea swims, which is a powerful symbolic act, right? Overcoming the cold.
And poetry nights.
Yeah. These are spontaneous, bottom-up expressions of modern feminism filtered through these traditional cultural dates. It's turning a historical footnote into a contemporary statement.
And if you look at that movement, you're seeing cultural confidence at home. And that confidence is being mirrored by the country's outward projection. Culture Ireland has been incredibly active, announcing over 1.1 million euros in grants.
That's a big number. What does that money actually translate to in terms of impact?
Well, that amount of funding, it's spread across 129 Irish arts projects, everything from circus and dance to film and literature.
Wow.
And it's aimed at more than 33 countries. It shows that Ireland sees its cultural export not just as art, but as a serious, strategic, soft power tool. They are intentionally shaping the global perception of Irish identity.
So that's the high-level strategy. On the ground, though, heritage preservation is also getting some big wins.
It is. The Moravian village of Gracehill in Antrim just gained UNESCO World Heritage status. That's critical official recognition for that local history.
And of course, the past is literally bubbling up to the surface. We had that anecdote about the farmer who found historic Bronze Age axe heads in his field.
I just love that idea. Ancient history interrupting the morning tractor route. It just reinforces that Ireland's past is rich and active, even as it's looking forward. Okay, so let's try and tie these cultural observations to the broader political and societal structures that are shaping the future. The new year brings this palpable anticipation around the direction of the government and the role of the state.
The sources mention Leo-era politics. We should probably define that context. What's the key anticipation driving the political conversations right now?
Right. So this refers to the political era influenced by Leo Varadkar, who was known for his focus on social liberalization and economic modernity. The anticipation isn't just about who is in power. It's about how the new government will either continue or pivot from that agenda.
The agenda of modernizing traditionally conservative social structures.
Exactly. Especially when it comes to the relationship between church and state.
And we're already seeing a really tangible reflection of that shift in education policy.
Yeah.
We had a UK Supreme Court ruling that now requires Northern Ireland schools to teach about faiths beyond Christianity. That is a fundamental change.
Oh, that ruling is a foundational societal shift. You can't overstate its gravity. For decades, religious education in Northern Ireland was just so deeply intertwined with the Catholic and Protestant separation rooted in the Troubles.
Mm-hmm.
This new requirement challenges that deeply entrenched sectarian system. It's moving the education system toward a multi-faith, pluralistic model. It's a quiet but massive step toward a more integrated, maybe more secular future.
That is a tectonic shift, you're right. Moving to modern lifestyle trends, the whole conversation around Dry January also just dominated the Irish media. It sparked these widespread public reflections on health, habits, and community.
And it's part of that same societal introspection we're talking about. People are actively questioning the traditional social structures around alcohol. It signals this collective reassessment of lifestyle. And that reassessment is happening right as major demographic changes are on the horizon.
Which brings us to a final pin in the map, the demographic context. Reports are now suggesting Ireland is approaching peak population. That's a significant finding.
It is. If Ireland's population growth starts to stabilize or plateau, it's going to have an enormous influence on everything: housing, infrastructure, social services. But culturally, it means the internal base that produces all this incredible art might stabilize or shift.
And that could create some friction with the huge outwardly focused cultural explosion we talked about at the start.
Exactly.
So we've covered the ground from the explosive, authentic sound of CMAT and Fontaines D.C. landing Grammy nods to iconic bands like the Wolf Tones redefining their very presence.
Mm.
And we saw heritage being redefined through the lens of modern grassroots feminism with the powerful reclamation of No Lag Na Imban.
The synthesis here seems clear. Ireland is highly self-aware about its identity on the global stage. It's using culture as a strategic export. You can see it in that 1.1 million euro funding.
Right.
And at the same time, it is internally dealing with these monumental shifts in its political, educational, and demographic structures. The confidence we see in the music is directly mirrored by the active reclamation and redefinition of its own culture.
So what does this all mean for you? We want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Given the report that Ireland is nearing peak population, and considering that significant financial investment being funneled into projecting Irish arts globally, how will the outward face of Irish culture evolve and change when the internal demographics stabilize or shift dramatically? That tension, the internal stillness meeting the outward cultural explosion, that right there is the central challenge defining Ireland in the coming years.
That's it for this episode of My Irish Radio, Music and Culture News. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can hear the best in Irish and Celtic music 24 hours a day at myirishradio.com. If you ever dreamed of sharing your favorite tunes and stories, now's your chance. Become one of the hosts. Host your own show right here on My Irish Radio. Just send us an email. It's easy as that. myirishradio@gmail.com. Until next time, it's Jamie Flanagan. Keep the music playing and keep Ireland in your heart.